Ludum Dare 47 stuck in a loop. Let's go. Ludum Dare 47 stuck in a loop. Let's go. Ludum Dare 47 stuck in a loop. Let's go. If you hadn't guessed, the theme for Ludum Dare 47 was stuck in a loop. And I was entering the compo event, meaning you enter as a solo developer, and do the design, code, art, sound effects, music, all in 48 hours by yourself. So when the theme was announced, I was predictably dumbfounded and just couldn't think of anything interesting to make right off the bat. So I started thinking a little harder.
Do you ever look at someone and wonder what is going on inside their head?
I don't know, use circles or something?
I guess I'll make a game with loads of circles, but how do I make it actually interesting? And then it hit me like a flash of lightning. Polar coordinates. Polar coordinates are an alternative to the conventional XY coordinate system we use. And to define an object or point in a place in space, instead of saying X number of pixels along the x-axis and Y number of pixels up and down the y-axis, we instead set an origin or pole and then define our position using an angle and then a distance from that pole. So we still end up setting an XY point in space, but we go about doing it in a slightly different way. And this leads to some really interesting effects. Instead of our objects having horizontal and vertical momentums, we can instead change the angle, which rotates the object around the pole, or we can change the distance, which moves the object further away or closer to the pole. Using this as our coordinate system will make dealing with circles a whole lot easier. So I took this idea and I ran with it, resulting in this first draft a couple of hours after the event started. Now all we have here is a bunch of grey alternating colours for our floors, which isn't very fun, so I wanted to make that more interesting, more fun and more colourful, which meant picking a colour scheme. And after trying for about 5 seconds, I couldn't think of a colour scheme, so I ended up picking just literally all of the colours. Which meant my game ended up looking quite psychedelic.
How can you tell?
Rainbows.
But Madbook, I hear you cry. The theme is stuck in a loop. Surely you're not just gonna make the player walk around boring concentric circles? Well, have I got news for you. Not only did I make the game loop in the circle direction, you know, those angles we talked about in the polar coordinates, but I'm also making the game loop in the length direction. So once the circle reaches a certain distance away from the center of the circle, it effectively loops back round to 0 and then being the smallest circle. This means that as you progress through the colours or floors, after you pass a couple more, you will eventually loop back round to the same colours and floors that you've already gone past, just with newly generated ledges and enemies and things. So I was really happy with this idea that I'd started, but it needed to actually be fun. It just wasn't fun yet. It needed to be more fun.
If it's not fun, why bother?
I added a couple of enemies that would randomly generate each time the floors wrap back round to the centre to give a bit more variation, but it still wasn't that fun. So I did 3 things that basically immediately made the game way more fun to play.
Wow, that's great.
The first thing I did was give the players a sideways dash so that they could actually retaliate against the enemies instead of having to avoid them all the time. As well as a downward smash that did a very similar thing, but also got you immediately down to the next floor without having to find a ledge. And this was a good start. More mechanics meant more fun. Then I added screen shake. It's just a staple of like modern 2D arcadey games. And I'm sure someone once said, shaking things is like fun in a can. And what can you see coming out of our Coke can? That's right, particles. So I added them too because the can demanded it. And finally, I added some crunchy sound effects to just give some more punch to all these things that I was putting in the game. And just look how satisfying this movement is now. So with the game feeling way more like fluid and satisfying now, I had to give the player a reason to play, some sort of motivation or goal that they'll just really want to complete. So I added a score for each floor they traverse. And in theory with my game, you could keep going till you reach the integer limit, although by my calculations that would take about 68 years so I don't think I have to code around for that. Then came my second flash of brilliance for the game. I would drain the colour from the game so that it looked like it did at the start, and then put in little orbs for the player to collect. When the player does collect the orb, it returns the colour back to the current floor or circle that they're on. So when you're playing my game, if you die, your score is set to 0. However, if you complete the rainbow by collecting all of the orbs, the game ends and you win. But you are unable to traverse any more floors and get your score any higher. I was hoping that this would give the players sort of like a dilemma, so that they would have to consider and weigh up whether to complete the game quickly and secure a win but get a low score, or to go around several loops, avoiding more and more dangerous enemies and delaying completing the orb to get an even higher score. So I was sitting there satisfied that I'd made a pretty quality game. I added a few bits and pieces such as tutorial text to sort of show players how to play the game when they first boot it up. And then I set about making the music. Let me know in the comments if you want me to make a video tutorial on how I make music for game jams, because I've got a method that works pretty well, is very effective, and doesn't actually require that much musical knowledge. But here's the ultra fast version of me making the music, which consisted of drum loop, nice, a chord progression, no, 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 yes, whack that in, and then just sort of improvising a melody that fits with the previous two and then cleaning it up afterwards in LMMS. I put the music in the game and then timed the black outline pulsing on the circles to match the tempo of the music. This is a really subtle change I made, but I think it really helps add to the feeling of the game. So this is what my final game looked like. I feel like it all came together really nicely, and I think I made a fun, engaging, almost arcadey experience with really solid, satisfying movement and a really unintentionally trippy aesthetic. And I'd really appreciate it if you wanted to give it a play, give it a rate. And if you want to play it, I've put the link in the description. If you took part in the jam, you can rate it as a part of Ludum. But if not, you could just check it out and leave a comment on itch.io. I'd really appreciate it. But anyway, I made the itch page, submitted it to Ludum, and was feeling pretty tired. But there was still more work to do. You gotta rate other people's games. So that's what I'm going to be doing for the next few days or so. And I'll be back on Friday with my favourite games from the Compo event. And then back next Tuesday with my favourite Jam event games. I make videos every Friday and every Tuesday. So if you like this sort of thing, let me know through subscribing, commenting, liking, or following me on Twitter. And until next time, goodbye.